Hello everybody and welcome back to Typical City. It was a good game to get warmed up for the pre-season yesterday, a stepping stone towards defending our treble. Yokohama 3, Manchester City 5. But did we learn anything? Was there anything stand out, anything of noteworthy moments in the game? There was, for me. The big standout for me was Cancelo played. He played. And is that starting to answer some questions? I'm not convinced yet. There was another standout, Kyle Walker as well, Bernardo Silva, two moments in the game, one before the game really, in handing Kyle Walker the captain's armband and then Bernardo Silva walking off happy as Larry. Is he injured? That's the question I want answering, but the little kick up the backside from Pep Guardiola that we all saw when he was walking off the pitch, it was done in jest, a little kick up the backside and was like, yeah, something's good. There's a positive vibe between those two individuals. So was that an indication that Bernardo Silva has already made his mind up? Decision's been made. He is going to stay. But let's start with Cancelo. He played, and I'm someone who prior to the game wanted him out. I am a forgiving person. I like the idea of someone being able to say sorry, come back to the club, apologise for your actions and the choice of words, in particular when you were at Bayern Munich talking about winning a Champions League under Thomas Tuchel, and then to come back and post on social media about forget the rest, believe in yourself while training in a Portugal top. It seemed a bit of a dig at City. If he's spoken to Pep Guardiola then and apologised, that's the key thing, and apologised to the rest of the team, then fine, that's okay. I would like to see that public, to be honest. I think the fans deserve an answer. I think the fans themselves want to know what's going on in his head. Where's his mind at? What's he thinking? Is he part of the team? Is he already stepping out of the club? Has he got his mind set on another club already? Does he see himself playing in a City shirt next season? And if so, is he going to kick up a fuss if he doesn't get the game time that no one gets at Manchester City? No one gets the minutes that they want. Even Kevin De Bruyne doesn't get to play every single game. Erling Haaland was dropped for numerous games that you guarantee if you spoke to him, he'd have been pissed off. And yeah, I want to play every game. But it's not possible in a Pep Guardiola Manchester City side because we've got to cover our bases. We've got to look at every single tournament. There are other tournaments that we prioritise ahead of others. So Cancelo's going to have to accept that he isn't going to play every game. Now, whether he's included or not, I think is heavily dependent on the system that Pep's going to play. If he's playing three at the back, then where's he fit in that? Can he be tucked into defensive midfield? I think he could do that. More of an inverted fullback than a defensive midfielder, but Rodri, Calvin Phillips played okay yesterday. A little bit rusty at the start, but he came on and he played okay. He's only got 45 minutes to impress. Rodri, yeah, no one's getting ahead of Rodri. So Stones and Rodri, for me, are the standout two. Kovacic can definitely play in defensive midfield. Pep's already mentioned about the numerous roles that he has planned for Kovacic, and I imagine defensive midfielder is going to be one of them. So you've got Rodri, Stones, potentially Kovacic, Calvin Phillips, Rico Lewis can play in there. There's 5 players that can play in defensive midfield. So if you can't play in the 3 of the centre-back, Cancelo can't do that. Definitely not. He's not strong enough defensively to play in the 3 at the back. The only place for him would be an out-and-out wide position. Maybe play as a replacement for Mahrez where he doesn't even need to think because he is that technically good. But then you look at Oscar Barb and Cole Palmer, who both had 45 minutes each yesterday and did well. They proved that maybe between them they could take the responsibility of Riyad Mahrez. So yeah, we have 2 youngsters one fills the left boot of Riyad Mahrez and the other fills the right boot of Riyad Mahrez, and we have 2 youngsters that could rotate between the two. Maybe that's not the answer. Could Cancelo step into that role though? And is he creative enough? Yeah, I think he is. So from an exciting point of view of having Cancelo come back and looking at the player, forgetting his attitude, forget that for a minute, just look at the player, you want him back because it's like, yeah, what a player. We saw that assist. That was eye of the needle stuff, threading that through. That no defence stops that. Doesn't matter if that's Yokohama, Chelsea, Real Madrid, any defence in the world. That is impossible to defend because the keeper it's out of his depth, and in between the keeper and the centre-backs, it was just precision. That ball was like, yeah, wow. And it wasn't only that. He came on and he played really well. There was a couple of moments where he had to defend, and even that looked quite good, like by his own standards of previously he's a bit ropey in the defensive side of his game. He looked good. I know it's only Yokohama, but he still had to defend, and he did his job against the man that went up against him. And then he looked composed, he received the ball, he was slide tackling, and he was everywhere. He looked good. He looked miserable, but he played well. So there is no arguing about the player. No, there's no debating how good of a player he actually is. The question is his attitude. Where are we at with his mentality? If he sees himself in a City shirt, he needs to accept there are going to be chunks, not the odd game. I'm talking 2 or 3 games, where 2 or 3 weeks potentially, where he doesn't get any game time and he's just turning up and getting paid to train. That's part and parcel of it. You are not the only one. He will not be, because there will be plenty of other players that have to work hard, accept that there are better players ahead of them in their position, or the manager has had his say, and the manager's idea is not to have 4 at the back. If he plays 4 at the back and we have a new system, there's no reason why Pep Guardiola won't already be ahead of it, because he's so far ahead of the game, Pep Guardiola, that he'll look at formations and he set up the WM formation, the W being at the top of the pitch and the M being at the bottom of the pitch with 3 at the back, and the 2 defensive midfielders that we played last season. It worked really, really well. So I guarantee you there'll be the likes of Klopp, who already started to play Trent Alexander-Arnold inverted, and other managers have started to do the same thing. It's just like the guy's just like, you can't copy the best. You cannot copy the best. You can try and fake it till you make it, but you can't. You can't copy the master, because he's always one step ahead. And that being one step ahead is what I'm talking about. Who wouldn't say that Pep reverts back to a 4 for the rest of the season and throws everyone all summer, all the opposition and the rivals have been coming up with a plan. How can we stop City? How can we stop this juggernaut that Pep Guardiola keeps redefining football every single season with his formations? Right, let's figure out how to stop that. 3 at the back with 2 defensive midfielders. They spent all season, then all of a sudden, first game, Pep plays 4 at the back, completely changes it and reverts to a totally new system. Who's to say Pep Guardiola won't do that? And there therefore is a space for Cancelo. It could well be the case. Walker started, and they've started with 4 at the back. Now, Walker can play as a centre-back. We've seen him do it for England. He can tuck in as the right side of a 3. He can definitely do that. But the fact that he was given the captain's armband, that was a statement move, I think. Albeit, I mean, on the pitch, the actual starting 11, I can't think. I mean, Stones maybe could have been given the captain's armband ahead of him. But in terms of who started the game, Akanji maybe, there was no one else really of a senior authority figure to actually give that captain's armband to other than Walker. So maybe I'm reading too much into it. But he didn't have to do it, Pep Guardiola. He could have given it Stones or Akanji. And by the fact that he didn't do that, I'm assuming that Pep's stating, you are a City player and you will be a City player next season. And by doing that, he looked happy, Kyle Walker. He looked good, he looked assured, he looked okay. There was a couple of moments, in fairness, the whole back 4 at the beginning, the first 20 minutes of the game against Yokohama, it was a bit rope, 2-0 down, so that speaks volumes of how ropey they were at the beginning of the game, but that's pre-season for you. You've got to sweep off those cobwebs and get fitness ready, and that's what matters at the end of the day. But I do think the captain's armband was a little statement. And then in another statement was Bernardo Silva coming on. Got about 10 minutes. I'd like to know why he came off so soon, because he didn't look injured. Maybe it was just a tightening of a muscle. Maybe something's a bit tender. It was more of a precautionary substitution instead of something like genuine. But the way that Pep kicked him up the backside, like, oh, go on, off you go, lad. That sort of attitude, that was like, yeah, I think that was for a show, a bit of showmanship there for everyone to look at, go, hey, look, he's a City player, that Bernardo Silva, and that is the most important player we have to keep this summer. I think that defines our next season. I don't think you go and get a Bernardo Silva replacement like that. I think you need to plan for it. I think it takes a year's worth of scouting and focusing and narrowing down the potential replacements for Bernardo Silva. And it sounds like City have made their mind up. The club has decided that he's staying and therefore haven't gone out and looked for a potential replacement, because the names that are coming up as a potential replacement, one, they don't sound as concrete as other rumours that have come through. and they're not going to do the job. I don't think they can do a job, and that's half of the battle, is who can do the Bernardo Silva job. He's just so versatile and does everything. In the small time he was on the pitch, he slotted it through a channel for Oscar Bob, and there you go, little 5-minute window of Bernardo Silva, and he already created a chance in that small amount of time. So that's the player that we're talking about, and that was him playing in the middle of the park. He could have been in Oscar Bob's position. He swapped the roles, and Oscar Bob could easily have been swapped inside, and that could have been Bernardo Silva on the outside, just highlighting his versatility. So ultimately, it was a good watch, the second half in particular, when he brought on the big guns, bringing on Rodri as well. But in terms of the three players that I think they're the headliners of news from yesterday's game, being Cancelo, Walker, Bernardo Silva, I think Walker and Bernardo Silva, I think that was a real close point that this is, decided. They've made their decision. City have made their decision. Those two are going to stay. Cancelo, up in the air for me, because I don't know who's going to buy him. I think that is a lot of the problem. Maybe Pep's just covering his tracks, making sure that if he can rectify the situation with Cancelo, and if he's stuck with Cancelo for the next 6 months until the January transfer window, then that's what we're stuck with. There is no point wasting the player at the end of the day, but you got to question the example that it sets. If he's come in and apologised, then I'm okay with that. Even if it's private, and I'd like to think that it's happened for my own sanity, because I wouldn't like the idea of a player who's kicked off, stormed out, gone somewhere else, then walked back in without any sort of guilt or remorse for the situation and just gone, yeah, I'm here now. What are you going to do about it? I'm that good. You're going to play me. And with that amount of arrogance, with that, and not having an apology associated with it, is unacceptable. I think that ruins the atmosphere of the dressing room. I think it hinders everyone's potential growth, and the attitudes of the likes of Rico Lewis, Cole Palmer, Oscar Bob. All these youngsters are going to be looking at that situation and say, oh, so you can be a bit of a twat, can you? Walk out and storm off, and then Pep will let you come back. No problem. Because that's the what we're dealing with, and he's got to set the example right now. And if he has apologised, then we're good to go. But looking at the overall performance of yesterday, bit ropey in the beginning, obviously going 2-0 down, but ultimately they turned it on. There was about half an hour in that second half where it was just like, that's the City that I've missed. And Haaland coming on, I've missed him. I keep saying it, I have missed that guy. Coming on, first touch, that little first touch out of his feet. It was actually 3 touches, but one was almost invisible. It was like there was a middle invisible touch where the strong touch to control it, then a really little delicate touch to just push it out that was almost like a half step. It was all within one step, one touch, and as he's moving his foot, pushes out in front of him, and then he drills it into the bottom right-hand corner. That's what we've seen, and that ends the goal drought, because let's be honest, he was on 8 games without a goal before that game, and by even anyone's striking standards, that is a goal drought. Erling Haaland, that's just like a chasm, not a drought, that is a chasm of empty space where no goals have entered that space. So for him to score is good. Then he goes and gets his second thanks to that Cancelo assist. Beautiful assist, really, really good. I thought Grealish was good in the first half an hour or so of the game. I think he was the standout performer in the first half in terms of just doing the basic. He didn't make mistakes. There was a couple of players, almost every player had a mistake in them. I thought Cole Palmer did really well. The move to get for John Stones' goal as well, absolutely sublime. Now, looking at Cole Palmer, his decision-making was highlighted within that 45 minutes. I was saying it all last season. His decision-making is what's wrong for him right now. Is he passes when he should shoot and he shoots when he should pass. And too often he makes those mistakes. But with the goal, he got it spot on. But if you go 5 minutes back before the John Stones little sweep into that top left-hand corner, before that goal, he was in the exact same position with Cole Palmer receiving the ball. Kyle Walker overlaps him. He sees him. There's no way Kyle Walker's not screaming in his ear saying overlap or whatever it is to indicate that he's going beyond him. He doesn't give it him. Instead, he cuts inside and has a bit of a woeful shot. The odds were in favour of giving it Kyle Walker. The chance for a goal was giving it Kyle Walker. But instead, he saw his name in lights, selfishly, goes for the shot. It was never on. It would need a worldie to go in. So you play the odds game, you give it Kyle Walker in that situation. 5 minutes later, exact same scenario, corner of the edge of the area. Kyle Walker goes overlapping. This time, he cuts it inside. Little back heel, right into the path of Kyle Walker, drills it across. game over at that point because they are all over the place. There was gaps for Kyle Walker to cross it into. Alvarez controls it beautifully, and the awareness of Alvarez to just lay it off to John Stones, who, boof, sweeps it into that top left-hand corner. Like a midfield player of the highest caliber, John Stones is going to levels that I never thought he'd ever reach. I always thought he was going to be a centre-back and a world-class one. I thought that's his peak, world-class centre-back. He can do that job, and now he's going into a defensive midfielder, and it's not like he's being shoehorned in anymore. He doesn't look out of place. He looks like Rodri, well, maybe not Rodri standard, but he looks there. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't look out of his depth. He looks comfortable, composed, and in control of the whole situation. And put that alongside Rodri is the fact that Stones came off as Rodri came on. So ideally, you play those two together. Stones and Rodri, it's just like, yeah. We don't need a replacement for defensive midfielder. And we talk about the number of centre-backs. Maybe we've lost a centre-back. Well, we haven't, because we know Stones can play there. But maybe the idea now is Stones is actually our defensive midfielder. He isn't going to be playing. If he's fit and raring to go, and we have a fully fit back line as well in terms of centre-backs, then Stones isn't going to be playing in defence. He's going to be playing in midfield. Obviously, if we start losing defenders, then Stones can step back. And having that versatility all over the pitch is just why we don't need to panic about certain players going out, the likes of Riyad Mahrez, and go, right, we need an exact replacement that plays exactly like Riyad Mahrez. We don't, because I think Oscar Bob and Cole Palmer can share that job between them. Bernardo Silva can go out there. And in terms of like Gundogan's replacement, Kovacic can go in there. Phil Foden can come and get more of a role into the middle of the park and play in the Gundogan role. So we have versatility over the pitch. There are very few positions that don't have that versatile option. Haaland, obviously, you can't ask Haaland to play anywhere else. Grealish seems to be tucked on the left very much, but I think Grealish can play in the middle as well. If push came to shove and we were stuck, Grealish can play in there. Absolutely. So yesterday showed that there isn't that much to panic about, because they turned it on in that second half and I was excited. I was a bit worried in the first half. Obviously, you think, even forget that it's a pre-season, just the overall performances, it was like bit of a hangover from the celebrations, looking rusty, that it was a hot day and like they looked tired and not quite up to scratch. But the second half rolls along, fresh players all introduced, the Haalands and Rodris, and amazing. And they just turned it on and it was crisp passing, moving the ball around like we're so familiar with. So I'm so confident now that I don't think we need to panic. Even if we were to go into the season with that squad, yes, we could do with more additional players, better quality of players, and depending on Cole Palmer and Oscar Bob is a risk. I'll give you that, definitely. But it's not the end of the world, because they're good players. They are good players. And Kovacic as well, I thought he looked really good in certain moments. A couple of moments where I thought he wasn't aware of how much space he actually had. I think there was one moment where he got into the area. I thought, turn. No one's marking you. And I think he assumed, and rightly so, because there should have been a defender right on his back, but there wasn't. So maybe that's the case if someone needed to shout, turn, something as simple as that. McAtee, another player that could come into that midfield role. Can he do it though? I felt it was a bit anonymous yesterday. He didn't really get involved. He picked up a little bit of an injury. 45 minutes. This is a brutal game. We are playing a brutal game, and at that age, Oscar Bob, McAtee, Cole Palmer, it's more brutal for them because you've got such a tiny window to impress and grab the headlines and show everyone what you're all about in 45 minutes. You don't even have the full 90 minutes in pre-season. You've got 45 minutes. Show me what you're about. Have you absorbed Pep Guardiola's instructions? How can you implement them? Have you got stage fright? Do you feel out of your depth? Are you a big fish in a small pond? Are you a small fish in a big pond? What's your mentality like? That sort of all in 45 minutes. Is not easy. It is not easy. And at our level, it's cutthroat. You're out. If you don't prove yourself in that small window, you are out. And Pep Guardiola will move on to another player. And that is the nature of the beast, unfortunately. So hopefully McAtee can do a little bit more. We saw glimpses of his touch. Glimpses of like his bravery on the ball. Like he's not shy of receiving the ball. Couple of moments where he was dilly-dallying on it. And he just didn't get enough of the opportunity. He wasn't really given that much of the ball. I didn't say his name on my live stream, which, by the way, thank you so much for joining me on the live stream. Those who watched yesterday, it was a surprise turnout. Honestly, I was expecting like turn on, go live, blah, 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 put the live chat on, and I start talking, how's everyone doing in the live chat? And I was expecting like a tumbleweed, just to go past. There was loads of you in there. It was amazing. Really, really enjoyed talking to a lot of you. So if anyone's interested in the next stream, Bayern Munich, I'll be doing that on Wednesday. Hope to see the same faces, maybe a few new faces. I tried to speak to all of you as best as I can, and I really enjoyed it. And it's more of an opportunity in pre-season because there is lulls in the game. Get to know me, I get to know you, build a bit of a community between us, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was really, really fun. So hope to see you for the Bayern Munich game. And what are your thoughts on Cancelo, Walker, Bernardo Silva, the three guys that I think all question marks above their head? What are your thoughts on those three? Do you see some staying, some going, all of them staying, all of them going? What are your thoughts on those guys? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Typical City is the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now, holding up Silva.